Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Melrose, Taguan, a BSed English third-year student at Northern Bukidnon State College. So today, we will have a short discussion about the famous American literature writer, which is Edgar Allan Poe and Emily Dickenson. Good afternoon again. We will have to discuss this famous American literature writer, Edgar Allan Poe and Emily Dickinson. So, have you ever wondered where these two authors get their ideas and how that ideas will be relate to their own lives? Well, don't wonder about these two famous authors, Edgar Allan Poe and Emily Dickinson. So, Edgar Allan Poe is from 1809 to 1849. Poe was born on January 19, 1809 in Boston, Massachusetts. His mother, Elizabeth Arnold Poe, was a talented actress from an English theatrical family. Poe's father, David Poe Jr., a traveling actor of Irish descent, was neither talented nor responsible. The family suffered financially after he deserted them. Elizabeth died in Richmond, Virginia in 1811 due to tuberculosis. And young Edgar, though not legally adopted, was taken in by a wealthy Scottish tobacco exporter, John Allan, from whom Poe took his middle name. On October 3, 1849, Poe was found in the street of Baltimore, delirious, in great distress, and in need of immediate assistance. That's according to the man who found him, Joseph W. Walker. He was taken to the Washington College Hospital where he died on Sunday, October 7, 1849 at 5 a.m. in the morning. So Poe's literary style and themes. The genre is best he has best known fiction works are Gothic, a genre he followed appease the public taste. Recurring themes deal with the questions of death, including a physical signs, the effects of decompositions concerning a premature burial, the reanimation of the dead, and mourning. Many of his works are generally dark romanticism genre, a literary reaction of trans- transcendentalism, and Poe strongly adhere to this light. And now let's have Emily Dickinson. Emily Dickinson is from 1830 to 1886. She was born on December 8, 1830 and was died on May 1886 in Amherst, Massachusetts. Her formal education, she attended Amherst Academy for 7 years and then for only 10 months at the Mount Holyoke Female Seminary. Reasons for leaving are not known. Either she was in poor health, she rebelled against the evangelical fervor present at the school, or she was simply homesick. So, the life of a writer. In the summer of 1858, she started revising her poems, making clean copies, and writing in earnest. In 1860, she had withdrawn from social life. The first half of 1880s, her most productive writing period. Emily died at the age of 55 of Bright's disease. Her coffin was carried through daffodils, and Higginson read No Coward, Soul is Mine by Emily Bronte, Emily's favorite poem. She was buried at West Cemetery on Triangle Street in Amherst. And of course, Dickenson is considered as one of the most original poets in 19th century, placed alongside such poets as Walt Whitman and Robert Frost. Taught in grade school, high school, and college, a powerful and persistent figure of American culture, heralded as greatest woman poet in the English language. And now we will have a the analysis about the story that is written by Edgar Allan Poe entitled The Black Cat. So the Black Cat illustrates best the capacity of the human mind to observe its own destruction without being able to objectively halt that deterioration. Cultural, historical, and political influence of the, the Black Cat. In The Black Cat, the narrator says that his wife alluded to the ancient popular notion which regarded all black cats as witches in disguise. The ancient Egyptians revered them as symbols of the god. In pagan and later Christian Europe, many superstitions grew up about cats, and some of them are contradictory. And according to folklore, cats took a part in witches' sabbats, and the witches would kiss the cat's posterior as a sign of their obedience to Satan. Since black cats were thought to be the embodiment of the devil. The major theme of the story is violence. Poe uses the brutality of violence to plumb the depths of man's character to see how far man can go in his own self-destruction. Poe forces the reader to consider the destructive causes of violence in the home as well. The characterization. First is the narrator. The narrator is never named, and his occupation is not mentioned. He is a man, probably still young, who tells his tale while he sits in a prison cell awaiting execution. Second is the narrator's wife. The narrator's wife is not named. Her physical appearance is not described, and her character is little developed. Third is the Pluto. Pluto is the narrator's black cat. Large, beautiful, and intelligent, he is very fond of the narrator and follows him around the house. Next is the setting. Unlike many short stories, in which the setting is carefully established with key details, the setting in this story is entirely general, not as specific. No date, time, or season is mentioned. There is no defined location other than the fact that the narrator lives at least near a town, since there are numbers of taverns he frequents. The tone. The tone in The Black Cat was paranoid and disturbed. The narrator is paranoid that his cat was a reminder of a crime he committed for his first cat, Pluto. The narrator is mad in an insane way because he did all of these acts, like hanging Pluto from a tree and cutting his eyes out. The narrative devices. Unreliable narrator. The narrator of The Black Cat is untrustworthy due to his insanity, alcohol abuse, and denial. The unreliable narrator is an old literary trope, but Poe gives the device. The narrator admits from the start of his story that he is not be trusted. The summary of the plot. The narrator begins the story, The Black Cat, by explaining that he does not expect the reader to believe his story. but he assures the readers that he is neither mad nor a dreamer. The next day he says he is to die, and he wishes to unburden his soul by telling his story. It only transpires later that he is about to be hanged for murder. He gives the reader some notice that this will be a comforting story, since the series of events he is about to recount have terrified, have tortured, have destroyed him. And last is the moral. First is justice and truth. Second is superstition. Third is murder and death. The narrator tries to hide the truth by walling up his wife's body, but the voice of the black cat helps him to justice, and that is justice and truth. Superstition. The black cat is an omen of bad luck, a theme that runs throughout literature. Third is the murder and death. Well, of course, death is the central focus of this story. And now we will have to discuss, or we will have to analyze, or an analysis. So now we will have the analysis of the poem Hope is the Thing with Feathers by Emily Dickenson. This poem is the kind of hymn of praise, written to honor the human capacity. Using extended metaphor, the poem portrays as a bird that lives within a human soul. This bird sings, come rain or shine, gale or storm, good times or bad. Cultural, historical, and political influence. The decade of the 1860s was a period of upheaval, as Dickenson was suffering her emotional crisis and beginning to withdraw into seclusion. America was experiencing the social, political, and military crisis of the Civil War, which broke out in April of 1861. The Transcendentalists also advocated social, religious, and political reform. They supported free religion and abolitionist movements, and they helped establish various utopian societies. So the theme of the poem is identity. For reasons that remain unclear, Emily Dickenson experienced an emotional crisis in the early 1860s and secluded herself from the world. Some scholars suggest that disappointment and love led to her withdrawal. Characterization: nature's birds and other personification. The setting and mood. For the most part of the poem, Dickenson has an uplifting and peaceful mood. The tone in the poem is hope is a thing. The tone in the poem, hope is a thing with feathers, is grateful. The narrative devices. First is metaphor. There is one extended metaphor in the poem. Second is personification. When an inanimate object is given human characteristics or qualities, then it is personified. The summary of the plot. Lines 1 and 2. One of the uses of quotation marks is to alert the reader to a special or unusual word or use of word. Dickenson rarely uses this technique, but when she does, it is often in attempting to define certain abstract words. Lines 3 and 4. Songbirds are famous for their beautiful songs. Although there are no words to be understood, people relate to and are deeply affected by bird songs. Lines 5 to 8. When people hear a bird continue to sing, even during fierce winds, it is comforting to know that these brave little creatures are not afraid. Likewise, when life is most difficult, hope is even greater solace. Lines 9 to 12. This courageous little bird is always there for the poem's speaker, even under the most dire of circumstances. For example, it continues to sing beautifully even in the condition of extreme cold and barrenness. It accompanies the speaker on the strangest sea, a setting that could be lonely and then dangerous. The moral of the poem, of course, it is quiet, visible, hope. It is the major theme and the moral that runs throughout the poem. And I have my references. So thank you for listening. Hope you get idea about my analysis and the discussion of the two famous American literature writer, Edgar Allan Poe and Emily Dickenson. Thank you.